Welcome to the Purple Knights podcast. This time around, we're going to be talking about the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe Edition, specifically discs 4, 5, and 6, the Vault tracks, and I'm joined by the one and only Dreamy Pop Royalty. Dreamy, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Ready to get this thing done. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's been a long time for both of us. We kind of took our time with the Vault tracks and allowed everything to sink in. So now it's time to get down to business and discuss these things. So, all right, let's get started. Let me pull up my notes. And the first track is Never Take the Place of Your Man, the 1979 version. And I'll let the lady go first.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I kind of knew this was an older song, but I was surprised that it dated back this far. And it's, yeah, like hearing them back to back, like with a couple of these ones with multiple versions, I put them all in a playlist and I had them all back to back so I could just compare them. And you can see where bits and pieces of where the song kind of started and how it evolved. And for me, I kind of like this older version a little bit more, just because I find the other one goes maybe a little long, but I guess this set also includes an edit version, so maybe I should listen to that a bit more. But yeah, this one made me think like early 80s with like a lot of the sounds in it. And like I'm picking up bits and pieces of like I thought the synths kind of reminded me of that one song, Do Yourself a Favor, that was on the 1999 Vault. Just a little bit, and it's like, yeah, I really like the sound, but I also sometimes I miss the female backing vocals that you hear on, like especially in the second verse, like I kind of expect to hear them, and it's like, oh, that's kind of missing. And then there's an interesting bit at the end where like he says, like, I'll try. He's like, you figure in he's going to be all hands off, and then like here he seems to have a change of heart at the very end. It's a bit more evident in the final release version. You can argue that the whole instrumental part was him kind of really thinking it over, and that he like gives the girl what she wants from him, I guess. So.
Right, exactly. I had very similar notes. To me, it sounds like more like 1980, like Dirty Mind era than the 79 Prince era. So I'm picking up more of a Dirty Mind sound, but maybe it's a transition into that Dirty Mind sound. I love the energy of the song, but I think what's lacking for me is the lead line, the main lead line that's played on keyboard, and then live versions, the horns play it as well. That little da 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 da. And then, yeah, what you were saying about that line, but I'll try. It changes the whole meaning of the song, because in the release version, he's more, like you say, hands off and doesn't really want anything to do with the situation. But in this version, he's like, but I'm going to try. I'm going to fight for it. So it's interesting, the change of meaning with just that one small lyric. But yeah, I like the song overall. I would say I prefer the album version just a little bit more, because I like that bluesy breakdown in the middle or the last third or fourth of the song. I really like that, especially on the live version on the Sign of the Times movie. That part always gets me really pumped and really excited when he's on that with that bluesy guitar and all that stuff. So I love that version, but this version is really cool and really fun to listen to and fun to hear. So yeah, definitely a a highlight for me right off the bat. And then we have the 85 version, it says on the notes for the track, of Teacher, Teacher. And I don't know, I'm kind of middle of the road on this song. I mean, I like it, but it's a little too, I don't know if I want to say corny for me, but yeah, it's interesting though. As I was listening to it, I was thinking of the disconnect or the juxtaposition of the sort of serious subject matter of a teacher seducing their student, and then you have the carefree music on top of it. So there's sort of a disconnect or a weird interplay between the serious subject matter of the lyrics and the carefree music. And so that's what really stood out to me. Negatives, I could say it's a little repetitive. It gets a little repetitive. And it doesn't really seem that deep or meaningful to me lyrically. So it's just kind of I don't want to say forgettable. Forgettable might be a little harsh, but it's just kind of a song that's there for me. I don't know. Dreamy Pop, what are your thoughts on Teacher, Teacher?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like they put this on 1999. It was like the second to last vault track, and at the very end, like you have so many heavy hitters, and then you get to like the last couple of songs. It's kind of like petering out with like energy wise. I wasn't familiar with the song before that, but I really didn't like get into it. Like I kind of like this version a bit better, just because it's a little more filled out, a little more realized. But yeah, as a song, maybe it's for him. It's kind of middle of the road. It doesn't really stand out. And I find the subject matter a little strange. Like it's kind of in the school with Happy Birthday, Mr. Christian, and a couple of those other like teacher-student songs that he was doing. It's very, very strange, and it's slightly uncomfortable, I want to say. But it's kind of like as a piece of music, I do kind of like it. But compared to like many of the other songs going forward, it's probably not going to be as memorable, I guess. Right. So Teacher, Teacher, for both of us, it's just kind of there. It's kind of weird and a little bit uncomfortable, but yeah, we'll move on because we're getting into some really good stuff here. Track number 3, All My Dreams, and this has been a fan favorite for years. People have heard it on bootlegs and pretty much went crazy over it, and I can see why. It's very dreamy and very much of a parade vibe, which leads me to wonder why it wasn't held over for the eventual release of Parade Deluxe, because it sounds like it would fit way better on Parade Deluxe than it would on here on Son of the Times Deluxe. The lead and backing vocals are really, really good. He's sort of speaking through a megaphone or whatever on the lead vocal, so you have that cool effect, and then the backing vocals are just really lush and layered, and the music is really dreamy at points and then very, very poppy with the horns and all that stuff. It's very, very parade sounding and really puts me in the mind of Christopher Tracy and the French Riviera and that whole vibe. The monologue that he gives in the deep voice midway through the song is really cool, but for me it was hard to make out what he was saying, so I wish that was a little bit clearer. Maybe it's just my own ears. Maybe I need to have my ears cleaned or something, but I don't know. I thought it was cool, but it was hard to understand. And then there's sort of a
there's sort of a funky breakdown towards the end of the song. The tone shifts, and you get more of a funk jam vibe. And I really, really loved that part of it. I thought that part was really, really cool to hear. So, overall, for me, it's a real highlight of the set. We're only 3 songs in, so that's pretty good. Boding pretty well for the set overall for me. Dreamy Pop, what do you think of All My Dreams?
Yeah, it was a highlight for me too. Like, I think I'd heard of the title, but I'd never heard the song before. So when it first started playing, it's like it kind of blew my mind. Like, it just the whole sound of it, I was in love immediately, and that was my first thing. I was thinking, like, yeah, this is definitely a Dream Factory. This is definitely very Lenny and Lisa front and center, and it sounded almost to me like a precursor to some of their stuff as a duo, like going forward. And I'm a huge fan of their first album and a couple of the other ones that they put out. There's some kind of fun, interesting lyrics. There's one where they talk about a submarine valiantly going through the Virgin Sea. It's like don't need much imagination to know what's going on there. It's like we have that and that child is born, will you marry me? It's like it kind of puts an interesting story into it, and then we get to the halfway point with the monologue and the music and all that. And I hate to say it, it's like I tune out a little bit just because, like, maybe it reminds me of the Rainbow Children and the narrator and that, and maybe that just, like, tuned me out a little bit. But beyond that, there are some nice musical bits, and Wendy's like, Lisa, I want you to paint the side of the train, and she does her little piano thing, and then the song kind of comes together at the end, and they make the comment, goodness will guide us if love is inside of us, and it's like, it's like bringing back Parade, like there's that little connection there that was kind of nice.
Right, I love that lyric and that idea of that mantra that you can repeat to yourself, goodness will guide us if love is inside us. So it's very, very, very cool. Anything else, or should we go on to the next track?
No, I just found it interesting. I was looking through the track listing for Dream Factory, and one configuration, this was the last song. And at first I was thinking, well, that's kind of weird. I would put this kind of at the beginning because it almost feels like, I don't know, I'm getting kind of like Broadway show vibes, and it's kind of, it kicks things off. But this, like the recent time I listened to it, it's like I can kind of see this being at the end and kind of summing everything up. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like the end of a journey. You're leaving the real world and entering the dream world. So yeah, I could definitely see that as a proper ending to an album. But yeah, it's very, very atmospheric and very interesting lyrically and musically. And like you say, the story that's woven throughout is very interesting as well. So next we go to the song that Prince sent to legendary jazz musician, trumpet player Miles Davis to add Miles's vibe to, and it was never officially released until now. And I gotta believe the Prince estate got the approval of the Miles Davis estate to release this, but I'm glad it's released. It's called Can I Play With You? And Dreamy Pop, what do you think of this track?
I mean, it might not be my cup of tea. It's not one that I'm gonna probably like run out and like grab on my iPod or anything. But I love the novelty of it, just having a different horn player, and especially like a legendary one on a Prince song. And somehow the two geniuses are able to come together and it works. And Prince kind of gives him the floor and gets out of his way and lets him do his thing. It's an interesting little come-on track if you kind of listen to, like, some of the words. And I'm thinking of stuff like, it reminds me of, I'm getting vibes from Love or Money or Dance On, Old Friends for Sale, like the song She Spoke to Me, like all that jazz stuff that he did.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, she shouts no, and like, oh, maybe he got the idea to put that in Alphabet Street or something. Like there was another connection there.
Exactly, it's the same exact shout. I have that in my notes as well. And I'm glad he took that from an unreleased song and put it in a released song, because it's a cool little, Prince trademark, something that only Prince could pull off. And for me, it's got a funky, almost a Camille vibe, but of course his voice isn't altered in this track, but I could see it fitting with the Camille songs, based on how funky it is. And I was thinking it kind of somehow lacks energy. It almost reminds me of a Love Sexy era track, like you were mentioning, Dreamy, you were mentioning Dance On, and I get that vibe as well. Just, and in general, the Love Sexy era in general, it sounds like that kind of sound, but it doesn't have, it's hard to explain. It doesn't have the energy or the drive of the Love Sexy song. And it's less trippy, where I think the Love Sexy sound is more trippy and psychedelic in a way, but it kind of fits in with that vibe for me. I really enjoyed it. It was one that I didn't expect to enjoy all that much, but I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But yeah, and Miles Davis playing on it, like you say, two legends working together. It's a very, very cool thing. And like you said, Prince just, steps to the side and lets Miles do his thing. And it's really, really cool to have these two geniuses join together on something. So I'm glad the track exists, and I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. But yeah, that's Can I Play With You? And next we have Wonderful Day. And this is where we're going to kind of veer from the usual track-by-track approach, because there's alternate versions of several tracks. So we're going to lump the discussion of the alternate versions in the same discussion, so we don't have to repeat ourselves. And it's kind of jumping around, but I think we're going to be able to make it work. And the first of those tracks with multiple versions is called Wonderful Day. And I like this song. For some reason, it made me think of Can't Stop This Feeling I Got from Graffiti Bridge. I don't know if it's sort of the brightness or the warmth of the song, but it's hard to explain. It made me think of that song for some reason in my head. And I also got the connection with the drum track, the kind of stop and start nature or sound of the drum track made me think of Escape, the B-side of Glam Slam from Love Sexy. And the chanting at the end where he's chanting or screaming or whatever you want to call it, it sounds very, very Camille. It sounds like the chanting from a song like Good Love or something like that. So it sounds very much in the spirit of Camille. I like the track. I'm not in love with it. It's not really a standout for me, but I enjoy it quite a bit. Dreamy, what do you think of the regular length version of It's a Wonderful Day?
Well, it's kind of hard to think of them separate because I've been looping them back to back like the last couple of times. But
okay, yeah.
I think I prefer the longer version, but yeah, I first came across it and I'm like, dang, I fell in love with it. And finding a longer version later on in the album, it's like, oh man, this is like the best thing ever. Like, I was really just feeling the vibe, and I love the message where he's saying, he pretty much says a couple of things, like some things aren't working out the way you want, or you might feel things are not working out at the moment, but you're alive and you've got to like feel blessed to be alive and just that sort of thing. And one lyric that stands out, he says that he wishes people could love him for who he is instead of what they imagine him to be, and he's not going to put too much effort to live up to their fantasies. It made me think of something else he said. I think it was in one of the books that came out, saying that like you don't, like when you're famous, when you don't act in a way that people expect, they lash out because they see a reflection of themselves in you. If you go against that, it's like it kind of weirds them out a little bit. But he was probably in a really blatant mood when he was recording, and he's like, heck with this, we're going to have fun. And the one thing that kind of stood out, just all the drumming and then a bass part or guitar part, I'm thinking, I heard this before, it's like, oh my god, it was in Under the Cherry Moon, where it's before he and Tricky go out to the club, before the girls and boys scene, and the song's playing in the background, and there's no lyrics that I remember that are playing, but just that little parade connection was kind of nice.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right. I'd never thought of that before. But, yeah, I just made the connection just thinking about it. But, yeah, it's a very, very positive message. And I just recently, a couple days ago, did a podcast with Dwayne Tudor about his upcoming book on the Parade and Son of the Times Era studio sessions. And that's a lot of that's the thrust of what the story of the book is about, is Prince dealing with the psychology of his fame and people, I don't know, recognizing him or appreciating him for himself rather than this superstar persona that he puts on. So the book is about a lot of the book is about the internal battle or the internal struggle of Prince being just Prince the guy versus this illusion or this image of Prince the superstar, and how that sort of weighed on him psychologically. So your comments about, the whole thing about, him wishing they could like him for him is bringing up this book for me. But of course, the book doesn't come out until June 10th. But I was fortunate and honored enough to be able to read it. So I'm very excited for everybody else, Dreamy included, to read this book and get a view of Prince that not many outside of his inner circle got to see. And not everything is all wine and roses. Prince is portrayed as a very human, very flawed individual, but it's fascinating to read about. So that just gives me, it makes me think of the book in a way. And the recording of this is of course, is talked about in the book of this track. The 12-inch mix is something that's cool to have. I think you're right. I think it is better overall than the shorter version. It seemed like when I was listening to the 12-inch mix, maybe my ears were playing tricks on me, but it seemed like the female voice that that's doubling Prince on the lead vocal, it seemed like the female voice was higher in the mix on the 12-inch version. I don't know if that's Wendy. I don't know if that's Wendy or Susanna, but it seemed like to me the female voice was higher in the mix on the 12-inch version. And there are a few instrumental additions, a few extensions here and there that make the song longer. The one that sticks out to me is the longer drum intro at the beginning of the song. But yeah, it's cool to have, and I'd say the longer version is definitely better for me. So yeah, that's Wonderful Day. And then we get to a real, for me personally, a real highlight of the entire set. The original version, worked on by Wendy and Lisa, the original version of Strange Relationship, which to me is the superior version from the version that ended up on the Sign of the Times album. I love the bongos, or whatever you'd call the drums. I think they're bongos. They sound like bongos to me, but I think they were done on the synthesizer, as was the sitar, the Eastern Indian sounding instrument. But I love those two additions in the mix of the song. The double lead vocal, where you've got the normal register and then the falsetto or high register, and they're doubled, is really cool. So good. I love it. And then I actually love the original lyric in the Sign of the Times album version. He says, "I'll take all the blame, yo baby, I'm sorry." But in this version, he says, "I'll take all the blame, but I'm only human." And I actually like that "only human" lyric a little better than "baby, I'm sorry," because "only human" is a little bit more open and a little bit more revealing to me of, Prince's sense of, guilt or his need to apologize. I think the "only human" lyric resonates more than "baby, I'm sorry." So I really like that lyric a lot more. The extended outro, where it just goes into the groove, is very good. It sort of puts me in a trance. It's almost like Prince is a snake charmer, and I'm the cobra sitting there, transfixed by this groove. So it's really good. It's really a vibe. There's really a special vibe to it, and I really love it. So, Strange Relationship, the original version with the sitar and the bongos. I love this version. Superior version for me by far of the song. And Dreamy Pop, what do you think of Strange Relationship?
Love it. I've always liked the song in general, and I thought it was a missed opportunity for like a single, because you can hear something like this on the radio. But I think I have heard a bootleg version of this original one, and it's nice to have a nice quality version. And this one has like maybe a couple more minutes on it, so it's kind of nice to have it in good quality. And yeah, I might come around on that myself. Like, I like both versions for different reasons, but having them back to back, like you hear this one, then you hear the album version, it's like, it feels like the other one has something missing. Well, obviously it does, because he tuned down Wendy and Lisa and also some of the instruments and kind of redid it as a Camille track. But yeah, I do enjoy this one. And there at the end of the set, there's a remix, and people can, like, love it or hate it. It's like, I don't mind it, but it's one of those cases where another song could have been put in its place. And it
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. It's cool to have, but yeah, it should have been swapped out for something different. I don't know what it could have been different, but yeah, it's kind of redundant, or I don't want to be harsh and say it's pointless, because I know on Twitter I was talking about that some of the tracks are pointless, and you were kind of joking with me, you know, that it was saying that Prince songs were pointless was blasphemy and all this. I'm like, yeah, it kind of is on some level, but
yeah,
it's like
I'm not that.
Some of these tracks, I'm like, why are they here? You know, and the remix is one of those tracks. It's cool to have, but yeah, there should have been something else in its place, I think. Maybe even they could have even put the live version of Strange Relationship from the bootleg, for those of you on volume, which I absolutely love. It's my second favorite bootleg of all time from Prince. And I know legally we're not supposed to champion bootlegs or anything, so I just want to say that anybody, you know, paying for bootlegs and all that is totally wrong, and we don't advise it and we don't sanction it. But yeah, that version of Strange Relationship for those of you on volume would have been a better addition, I think, than the Shep Pettibone remix. But anything else to add, Dreamy, on either the first version or the remix version?
No, I just wanted to say the remix, like, I almost want to call it like the 80s boy band remix, because I'm getting like either New Kids on the Block or New Edition vibes, like some of the instrumentation on it. And it's clearly from, like, they're clearly programmed, but whatever.
Yeah, the boy band version, that sounds exactly right, exactly on point. So yeah. And then we have one of the first instrumentals on the set, the first instrumental on the set, and it's more of a brief segue that was part of the track listing for the aborted, or I shouldn't say aborted, but unreleased Dream Factory album, and this is Visions. This would have been a segue that opened the Dream Factory album. And normally, in general, I'm not much on instrumentals. I don't know, I just prefer music with lyrics in general. But I noticed for myself, listening through these songs in preparation for the podcast, I noticed that there were several instrumentals on here that I really kind of enjoyed, and I'm just going to say I have two brief points to make, and that's pretty much it. But first of all, I've got to give props to Lisa Coleman, because she plays piano beautifully. Other than Prince, I can't imagine somebody playing piano that I like more than Lisa. Her style and, you know, just the way she plays is absolutely beautiful. So props to Lisa Coleman. Lisa, we love you. And as I was listening to Visions, I was reminded of the instrumental Venus de Milo on the Parade album, but I actually like Visions better than Venus de Milo. So it's like, to me, it's like Visions is a better version of Venus de Milo in a way. So those are really the only points I had. Dreamy, what are your thoughts on Visions?
Well, when I first came across and not much was happening other than piano. I'm like, well, I know what song this is, and it was just really pretty, and it. Yeah, this is one other one. It's like it's nice to listen to, and it kind of sucks that they don't go on for much longer. But yeah, for me with this one, it's not exactly the same. I listened to this next to another song just to check something out, but I might be wrong. But I don't know. It kind of reminds me of some of the piano work she does on Power Fantastic. I thought maybe it was like a precursor for that, or just another version of that. But that was the kind of vibe I was getting.
Yeah, that makes sense because Power Fantastic is just a few tracks here down the line, and they present these songs in the order that they were recorded. As far as I know, on the Super Deluxe set, the vault tracks are presented in the order in which they were originally recorded. So you could be onto something there with that connection between Visions and Power Fantastic. But yeah, beautiful, beautiful song. Props to Lisa Coleman. Great stuff. And then next, for me, we have kind of a pointless track, I guess. It's one of Prince's best album tracks, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker. And I guess he just had Eric Leeds throw horns on it just to see what it would sound like. But to me, it doesn't fit the song. It sounds really weird and really out of place. And like I say, it's cool to have. I'm grateful to have it, but they could have replaced it with something else. I don't really see, the horns to me don't really add to the song all that much. And I hate to sound like a Debbie Downer, but for me, it's just like, why is this here? It's I don't know. I don't want to get too negative, but Dreamy, what do you think of Dorothy Parker with horns?
Well, it was nice to have. I came across it the first time, and like, ooh, this is a song I recognize, and it's like, ooh, then the horns come in. And the one thing I kind of found, like, I really like the song in general. Like, it's one of my favorite Sign of the Times songs. And that's mainly because of the story. It's a real funny story. It's cheeky in a way. And I find this version with the horns on top of it, I find I'm not listening to the lyrics as much. I'm just kind of enjoying the music and how the little horn accents happen here and there. And it kind of, I don't know, it's not to say that the other version's incomplete, but it's like it gives it another dimension. I kind of enjoy it, but I can see myself maybe if I listen to it too much, I might tire of it. And like some of the horn lines are kind of they get repetitive after a bit, and I might get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm kind of sick of just hearing that part over and over again. But like just in the context of like the vault disc, it was just a fun little thing to come across, I guess. So
yeah, definitely. So next we come to, for me again, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, but a major highlight for me is Witness for the Prosecution. And the first version is just, to me, is just incredible. It's dirty funk. And that bass line is like, oh my God, incredible. Like in your face, crank up the bass and just groove to it. I absolutely love it. And the backing vocals, they sound like, as I'm playing the story of the song out in my head, or if I'm envisioning my own personal music video to the song, I can almost see a church choir being in place in the jury box in the courtroom and belting out the background vocals, which are really, really good. I imagine it's Wendy, Lisa, and Susanna, I believe, are the background vocalists, and it could be even more people, but I know those three are definitely in there, and the background vocals are so good, and the guitar solo is just scorching. I mean, it's on fire, the guitar. I mean, just amazing stuff. And then the drums are just pounding, and they're just so awesome. And I love the nice touch of the little horn runs in there towards the end. Yeah, overall, just a great song, and a definite highlight for me, version 1 of Witness for the Prosecution. So, Dreamy, what are your thoughts on this version of the song?
I think between the two, I think I prefer the second one a bit more, but I think this one's growing on me a bit. Like, they both have different things that I'm drawn to. Like the chugging of the main, where this guitar bass, like I'm thinking of, it makes me think of the song Dreamer he put out like way later in his career. And the laid back vocals, the horn, and the guitar solo has a nice melody to it, and like it has a nice warm sound to it. So yeah, I find this one growing up, and then the other version kind of has an interesting. He kind of flips it on its head, like they're two sides of the same coin, kind of like what he did with another song he did two different versions of. And the second version, I'm like, my first thought was Black Album. Like the guitar makes me think there's a teeny bit of guitar in the song Dead on it, and that kind of repeats throughout the song. And then he makes a comment like, give me like I'm going to get the electric chair, and he says, and then another point, later on he gets like more and more desperate, like don't, I forget the actual lyric, but he says, don't give me solitaire, or something. But
right,
it's interesting that the two back to back, same song, but the music kind of gives it each version a different vibe. So that's a neat little thing about the set, I would say.
Yeah, and for me, the second version is cool. It sounded, to go off your comment about the Black Album, Dreamy, it reminded me a lot of Bob George. So I could definitely feel that sort of funky darkness to it. It was very cool, and I love the vocals by Prince, and like you said, as it goes on, he gets more and more desperate and more impassioned, and there's also great guitar work in the second version as well. But I'm glad to hear that first version is growing on you more, because to me it's absolutely amazing. It just blows my mind. But I like the second version a lot too. And then we get to Power Fantastic, which finally has the introduction, not only the musical introduction, but we get to hear Prince's spoken instructions to the band before they launch into the song, which is absolutely amazing to hear. Anytime I get to hear Prince's speaking voice, is such a treat and such a gift, and it's so special to be able to be let in on such an intimate moment in the studio. So really cool to hear that. The tune-up is really cool. You know, it's basically just instruments tuning up, but at the same time, there's sort of a build-up or a crescendo that seems almost sexual in a way. You know, it seems like it's the passion, the intensity is building, and I really feel that in the tune-up. So that's really cool as well. And then the music is just, when he starts in the piano and the main melody and Bobby on the drums and everybody, it's just so beautiful and so haunting. And Prince's falsetto on this song is so, it's pretty much perfection to me. I mean, it can't get much better as far as Prince singing in falsetto. And it's so, there's such a tenderness to it and a passion that gives me chills. You know, it's such a dreamy, ethereal song, and you really get lost in it. And then, again, you know, the passion, you know, it makes me think of, you know, intimacy with your partner or the person you love. You know, it gives me those vibes. And then the flute that comes in, that I'm pretty sure is Eric Leeds. The flute is amazing. I love it. And, you know, towards the end, you know, Prince, you know, with his vocals is pretty much pleading for love, and it's just so passionate and so emotional. And the ending, the way it ends, is just perfect. And overall, the song just gives me chills. And I remember when I got done listening to it, I just had to sit there for a good 30 seconds and soak it all in, because it's an experience in and of itself. So definitely one of the absolute highlights of the set for me. But Dreamy, what do you think of Power Fantastic?
Yeah, in general, this was a song I discovered really late. Like, I discovered it, like, post-2016. And I think I heard about it on a podcast. I'm like, oh, let me see if I have my various bootlegs. I did have it. And it was one of those, like, took my breath away type moments. And it's like, I don't know. It's hard to describe. I felt like it was something else. And it's nice to have another version. It's always for these kind of moments where you actually hear him giving instructions or just talking before they actually do it. Like, and I think I didn't get the opportunity to, like, crank up the volume on my earbuds to, like, really hear him. But it's cool hearing this and that. He says, "No, just trip. There are no mistakes. This is the fun track." And so then we have the big build up, and it's like, at first it was maybe a little jarring, just because I'm so used to the other version that officially came out. But I am warming up to that a little bit. And I think Susan Rogers talked about on another podcast, talked about the recording of this one and how he was in the studio engineering, and he was huddled in a corner with a microphone recording his vocal. And I'm thinking, well, his vocal feels a little more free with the official version, and this one I can kind of see where he's holding back just a little bit. And, like, there are some moments, like, with the official version where he gets certain notes, like, on that chorus, like, it just hits you. Like, it again, hard to really describe. You just feel it. But it's nice to have this version with the intro. It kind of gives you a look inside the studio, that sort of thing.
Right. And then we have another short little instrumental that was also, I believe, included on one of the configurations of the Dream Factory album. And that says what? The only comment that I have in my notes for this one is that it reminds me of Now's the Time, which is the jazzy instrumental interlude we hear in the Sign of the Times movie. But it reminds me of that, but to me, this is better than that is. So that's literally the only note that I have for this track. So, Dreamy, what do you think of And That Says What?
Yeah, the one thing that kind of stood out to me was just the James Brown vibes I was getting from it. I can kind of imagine Prince just on the stage with this one rehearsing and just like putting some dance moves on. And the whole title, like the title comes in because he says it at the very end, and that's probably what he wrote on the tape. But that was something he said in Under the Cherry Moon a couple of times, I think. Like once at the beginning, where it's like, and that says what? Saying she gets a $50 million trust fund when she turns 21. And then at the end, where he's talking smack to Isaac Sharon, he's like, and that says what? And that says, I'm going to take something from you. So it's something he was clearly saying a lot of the time, and I guess put it down or something while they were randomly playing in the studio one day.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, I do recognize that line from the movie a couple times. Yeah, so it's a good little instrumental track. Not one of the standouts for me on the set, but it's cool to hear and cool to have. And then we have a track that was meant for Sheila E., but I don't think we're even sure if Sheila recorded her own vocals or not for this. She might have, but it's called Love and Sex, and it's different from the Love and Sex track that was on the Purple Rain Deluxe in 2017. This is an entirely different song. But Jamie, I'll let you go first on this one. What are your thoughts on Love and Sex?
Well, I listened to the two back to back because I really didn't remember the Purple Rain Vault version one that well, and I just remembered that it was one I didn't really care for that much because he shouts most of it. This one I much prefer, and I find that it's when I listen to it, it sticks in my head, and I think there was like 2 or 3 times in, I think I was starting to sing the chorus, like it was just really sticking in my head. It's very, very catchy, gets in my brain. Yeah, a couple of things I like the full clap sound with the reverb behind it in the chorus. Like that's a cool little thing. The melody kind of reminds me of stuff from Emancipation, oddly, which is interesting.
Huh.
But yeah, this is one that I think is kind of it might be one I just come back to when I'm in the mood for it. Like I don't know what it is. I just kind of enjoy it.
Yeah, the main thing, I really like the song as well, and the main thing that I got listening to it was the same kind of vibe as Empty Room. I don't know, it has sort of that big, grandiose kind of, arena rock, warehouse sort of sound to it. And I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's hard to put my finger on, but it just reminded me of Empty Room a lot. And then the two things that stuck out to me were Prince's very passionate vocals, which I absolutely loved, and then the guitar solo towards the end was really, really amazing, really fire. So I really love those two elements of the song. And so, yeah, it's a really, really good song. And I'd love to hear Sheila's version someday because, of course, we know it was written for her. So I'd love to hear her version one day. And then we get to sort of a shorter, really beautiful, short and sweet track called A Place in Heaven. And there's 2 separate versions of this song on the Super Deluxe set as well. So the first one we get is Prince's vocal, and it's really, really, really good. I mean, to hear Prince sing like this is really, really good. It's short and sweet. The message of the song really makes you think. And I don't know, I really like the song in general, and Prince's version is the one I prefer, I think. Lisa's version is good, and I know Prince wrote the song with Lisa in mind to sing it. He wanted Lisa to sing it. There's also a Jill Jones version out there, and floating around on bootlegs. There's a Jill Jones version, but we get Prince's vocal on this set, and then we get Lisa's vocal, and Lisa's vocal is good, but I think I prefer Prince's. I don't know, that's just a matter of preference, but Dreamy, what do you think of A Place in Heaven?
Yeah, first time I heard it, I felt like right away. But yeah, obviously I want an order, but I'm thinking, I think this was, I thought I remembered that Lisa did this one, so it was nice to, I think I was on the third disc where her version comes in, and I felt like the song suits her vocal range better, and I kind of just, maybe it's the music, I felt like maybe it was kind of similar to her stuff with Wendy as a duo, but at the same time, recent listens, I'm half wish that I could somehow mix the two versions together, because I find with certain lines, I think with the second, one of the other verses, just the way that Prince sings and just how he follows the melody, I think he goes a step down instead of going a step up. Within it, I think I like it better on it. And yeah, it's nice. It probably would have been a huge highlight on the Scream Factory album if that had ever come out. And it's another one that kind of sums up that whole vibe that they were going with at the time. But yeah, it's so freaking pretty. I love this one.
Yeah, it is really pretty. It's nice. It's really, really good. I enjoy it. And then we get to another instrumental segue. Before we had Lisa highlighted with Visions on the piano, and this time we have Wendy highlighted on the guitar with a track called Colors. And not really much to say about this one. It's short and sweet. Just some jazzy guitar noodling, and it sounds really, really nice. It gave me a vibe of the Rainbow Children, which is obviously much later in Prince's career, but that's the vibe it gave me, sort of the warm jazzy guitar sound of the Rainbow Children. It's nice, but it's definitely not one of the standouts for me on the set. But it's a nice segue to have, and for people that want to put together the Dream Factory album, which technically you really can't do even with this set, because there are some slight differences in different versions of the songs, but they tried to include all the Dream Factory segues, so people would be able to sequence their own Dream Factory album. So that's why this is on here. But yeah, nice little segue with jazz guitar. I like it, but I kind of gloss over it a little bit, to be honest. No disrespect to Wendy. I absolutely love Wendy, and I love her skills as a guitarist. So no offense to those, but but it's a cool little segue. Dreamy, what do you think of Colors?
I was thinking that it's not long enough. I want a little bit more, but other than that, I agree. I was thinking either it'll give me vibes from The Truth or the Rainbow Children, very, very similar jazzy guitar stuff going on. Other than that, I don't have much else to add.
Yep. And then we have one of the most blasphemous things that I could think of to ever come out on any Prince release, which is an edit of Crystal Ball. And you can tell I'm sort of angry about this, but Dreamy, I'll let you start this one. What do you think of the 7-inch mix of Crystal Ball?
It's not long enough. I don't know what they were thinking. we have to have it on somewhere, but it's like you guys do know that you're catering to diehard Prince fans, right? And you know that we're going to want the long version, but yeah, it's probably not one I'm going to be listening to all that much, just because like most of us have the full-length version, so why bother with this? But it's nice to have, but it's like, I feel bad. I can't really add too much else.
Yeah, exactly. I was listening to it. Okay, it's an edit, but an epic song like Crystal Ball, you can't really edit it, and do it justice. So it's like I went back and forth in my head between thinking of this and then thinking of the album edit of Computer Blue versus the hallway speech edit.
Oh yeah.
But the difference is that the Computer Blue edit is well done, but I still prefer the longer version. The longer version is the version for me. The same, I feel the same way with Crystal Ball, but for some reason the shorter version of Computer Blue, the way that it's edited, it works. It's okay. It works as its own single edit, but this edit of Crystal Ball is just absolutely blasphemous and absolutely pointless. It's like, why even have it on here? I know you had to have the song represented in some way because it's, the Crystal Ball Sign of the Times era, but come on. And I know that the song was already released in full on the 1998 Crystal Ball compilation, which I'm hoping will be reissued in the next year or two by Sony. So maybe that's why they didn't or couldn't include the full version on here, but including an edit is just like, it's an offense to diehard Prince fans in my point of view. So yeah, I got a little upset with having it on here, but I can see why they'd have it on here from a completist point of view, but overall it just doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, moving on. Big Tall Wall, another song where we had two versions on the set. Version 1, I'll just say I really, really like it. It has a 1960s British invasion vibe to it, like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or the Searchers or a band like that. I love the playful backing vocals and the way that they interplay with the lead vocal, and it's a very, very fun song musically. As I was talking with Dwayne Trudell about it, he mentioned that the lyrics are, if you read into them, really closely, they're really disturbing because it talks about, keeping a woman prisoner and basically holding her captive, and that's what true love is all about. Which, no, it's not. It's exactly the opposite of true love. But but this version is very cool. 60s British invasion type vibe, and I really like it. Dreamy, what are your thoughts on version 1 of Big Tall Wall?
Yeah, it's. I think I first heard about this on the official Friends podcast, talking like from the estate, and had various people involved with the project talking about it. It was the first time I heard about it, and Susanna was talking about it, and she's like, "Oh, there's trouble in paradise. He's not feeling something that's going on with us." And it's kind of weird. Like it's all cheery and happy in this version. And it's like I echo your comment. I called it the George Harrison version because it has some like Indian instrumentation, it has guitar and some other stuff in it. But yeah, it's like it's really happy really happy music, and the lyrics are like they don't quite match. And then we have version 2, which like I almost prefer the version 2 because it's grittier, it's a little darker, and he's a little more sadistic, and he's like, yeah, I have another girlfriend, but I'll make room for you, and I have more holes than a golf course. And all kinds of weird stuff is going on, but it's like I oddly like it. I can't really explain why.
Yeah, I mean, the second version, I mean, you nailed it perfectly. It's grittier, it's darker. I've got in my notes that it sounds more trippy,
Yep.
And it's a lot more haunting than, the first version is, with that, that really sparse kind of echoey drum beat. And I love the falsetto vocal, his choice to do the verses in falsetto versus his regular, chest voice in the first version. I love the falsetto version. So yeah, to me, version 2 is the superior version because, like you say, the vibe of the music fits with the lyrical content a lot better. So there's less of a disconnect or a jarring disconnect between the lyrics and the music. So yeah, version 2 is definitely, in my mind, the superior version. So then we have a cool little segue, and I'm going to try and pronounce this, but it won't be actually the words backwards, but I'm just going to call it Never Ni a Culpa, a place in heaven backwards. And it's a little segue with I think Lisa is doing the main singing, but I think Wendy is in there as well, either harmonizing or saying something. I don't know. I didn't listen to it forward, which I probably should have, to have a more complete, view of it heading into this podcast. But it's a really cool little segue, and I love the warm tones of the church organ in the background of it, and it makes me think of the Purple Rain album. Of course, the obvious connection is Let's Go Crazy with the church organ intro, but also Darling Nikki, in the sense that both of these tracks, Darling Nikki and this segue, both incorporate backwards messages that are either from or about God or Jesus. So it's a real cool little spiritual segue for the Dream Factory album. So I enjoy it. I need to listen to it played forward. But the way it is backwards, I enjoy it. Dreamy, what do you think of this little segue?
I kind of forgot that was meant to be a segue. The first time I heard it, I didn't mind it so much. I kind of figured out what it was after like a few seconds. And then on another listen, like it just completely threw me off because I wasn't expecting it. Now I'm warmed up to it a little bit, I guess. it's an interesting listen, and yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like Darling Nikki, you had that backwards part at the very end where there's like a spiritual message at the end of a weird song that's kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum. But I don't really have much else to really add with this one. I think it's probably not one I would listen to in the context of this whole set. I've put it in a medley with the other two versions of A Place in Heaven. So that's all I have.
Right, that makes sense to put it in a medley with the other two versions of A Place in Heaven. Right, that makes complete sense. So yeah, and then we have one of the fan favorites for years when this was only on bootleg, and it's finally officially released in this set. We have In a Large Room with No Light. Dreamy, I'll let you go first on this one. What are your thoughts on In a Large Room with No Light?
No, it was the first time I was hearing the song. I've heard about it in circles, but I didn't know what to expect. But once it started going, it's like, oh, dude, like it was another huge highlight right away. I don't know. I was immediately thinking, I don't know, like floor show or something like. I don't want the cruise ship's usually meant as like not a compliment, but it was making me think of like either like a floor show like on a cruise ship or in Vegas, and they're kicking it off and they're like all the dancers come out and they're like doing samba or cha-cha to it, and just a huge elaborate setup, and just the whole vibe is like I revel in it. I love it.
It's weird because I got the exact same impression. I have in my notes Latin dancing, ballroom dancing, Dancing with the Stars type song. I could see them featuring this song on Dancing with the Stars if they ever had a Prince night. And just because of the carefree sort of European vibe to it, it sort of gives me a parade vibe for some reason. I don't know why, but it does. And then the other main point I wanted to bring up with this one was the rock breakdown, sort of where it transitions into rock at the very end, and you have that awesome little saxophone part at the end. I really, really enjoyed that and didn't really see it coming, but I loved the transition into that whole rock vibe, and then the little saxophone elements at the end were absolutely great. So yeah, I love this song too. I need to get more into the lyrics. The lyrics are pretty deep, I'm thinking, because a lot of people have commented on it, through the years, and it's like, did you ever think your life was like looking for a penny in a large room with no light? So I need to reflect on that a little more and see what meaning that conjures up for me. But yeah, great song overall and a highlight of the set. Next we have Twain, which was eventually given to Mavis Staples and released by her, but it was actually included on several different configurations of the Dream Factory album. And I don't really have much to say about this one. The train sound effects on the song are really cool and really add a nice, vivid element. You can really visualize the train in your head. And for me, it has an old school soul vibe, almost like Motown, like somebody like Aretha Franklin would sound really good on a song like this. I think for that reason, it's a great fit for an artist like Mavis Staples. But I don't know, that for me there seems to be a disconnect with Prince singing a song like this, but that's just, my personal opinion and personal preference. But Dreamy, what are your thoughts on Train?
It was a great way to open disc 2 of the ball. For starters, like within seconds, I was like, dude, I'm feeling this. I'm invested. And yeah, I agree with the Motown vibes. I was thinking maybe because I know maybe Staples eventually did, but I'm thinking it is better suited for that. But I find that it's one of those grooves on this whole set that I just get trapped in. I just love every second of it. And I find that his vocal range, he's all in falsetto, and it makes me think of his earlier recordings. It's an interesting artistic choice is what I had in my notes. And it's also just the story is interesting because he says that if she's not feeling it anymore, he won't stand away. Like, he usually doesn't take that approach when things aren't quite working. So yeah,
right. Cool. And then we have another instrumental, It Ain't Over Till the Fat Lady Sings. And I have very little notes on this one because I'm not a huge fan of instrumentals in general, but it made me think of something from the I'll Do Anything sessions that is on the 1999 compilation of the Vault Old Friends for Sale. It made me think of one of the jazzier numbers on that album or that collection. It would fit well with those type of songs. So I enjoy it, but again, not a standout for me. Dreamy, what do you think of It Ain't Over Until the Fat Lady Sings?
Yeah, first time running through the set, it was one I had to set aside with a couple other ones just because I didn't remember it. And maybe it's because it's an instrumental, and I have very jazzy horns and piano, but other than that, I'm having a lot of trouble really thinking of anything to really say about it. It's probably not one I'm going to go out of my way to pick up and listen to.
Okay, yeah. So next we have Eggplant, the original Prince version, the Prince vocal version. So what do you think of Eggplant, Dreamy?
Yeah, this was another one I had to set aside and remind myself what it sounded like, and what's such a catchy melody. It's kind of hard to believe that I couldn't remember it, but this is a lot of music. Yeah, for some reason the melody makes me think about Christopher Reeve. It's very similar, and just the whole story of this one is and it's weird, and it sounds like this girl is very, very nuts and very sexually charged, and the percussion. I don't know how the heck he recorded it, but it's a really cool, different sound. I enjoy that, and that gets in my head. And
right.
The only other thing I could think was in the modern age, we have emojis, and supposedly there's an eggplant emoji, and it's code for something sexual. And I'm thinking Prince was ahead of his time. He was using it in a different context before everybody else was. So I don't know what the heck all that is about, but it's a fun song. I like this one.
Yeah, interesting to think about the emoji connection. But yeah, my notes I have, it's a very fun song. It's a funny song that made me laugh in several different places. And it's very, like you said about the drums, it's very quirky sounding. There's a quirk factor to it that I really, really like. And it is really catchy. And the Christopher Tracy connection you made, I made the same connection as well. So there's that connection as well. And The only real observation I made about it was it's a shame that was never performed live, because to me it would have made a great live track, because it has that energy and that fun vibe to it. Would have been great in a live setting. So yeah, I really like this song, and it's a fun one to listen to. So next we have Everybody Wants What They Don't Got. So I have very little notes on this one. It makes me think of a theme song for a 70s TV sitcom, like The Odd Couple, or even a late 70s sitcom like Three's Company or something like that. It makes me think of theme music for a TV sitcom in the late 70s and early 80s. It's pretty good, and the message is kind of interesting, talking about, in terms of the grass always being greener on the other side of the fence, and, everybody wants what they don't got, and, that whole cliche of that, saying. But yeah, it's a fun little interesting song. I like it well enough. Dreamy, what are your thoughts on Everybody Wants What They Don't Got?
It's pretty much the same. It's kind of middle of the road, but there's kind of a nice little melody to it. They're not exactly the same subject matter, but it made me think of the song You Don't Grow on Trees from the 1999 vault. He did a random song about some common problem that people seem to have, they're unhappy in their lives or whatever else. I don't know. I don't have a whole lot more to add. It's kind of a quick, short, nice little song.
Yeah. Blanche is the next track, and obviously Prince had either seen a film version of Streetcar Named Desire or been to a stage version of Streetcar Named Desire, because that's what this song is about. Stanley and Blanche from Streetcar Named Desire, and I've never seen the movie version or the stage version, so I have no context with which to, enlighten my point of view of the song. But yeah, it's just super, super funky, and it's Prince in his confident, max mode, I guess you could say, trying to pick up, the chick, trying to, be smooth and, be Mac Daddy Prince, basically. And there was a lyric that really stood out to me, that really made me smile, because it's totally Prince. It's total confidence, and it's a total line that you would think he would come up with in a song, which is, "You ain't been driven till you try my ride." So I absolutely love that song, and it may be a little crude and a little rude and a little forward, but to me that's totally Prince, and it just made me smile and chuckle how bold and forward it was. So, and then, towards the end of the song where he says, "You got me on fire," that line was absolutely amazing. I just loved it. So yeah, very, very, very funky track, and one of the standouts for me on the set. Jamie, what do you think of Blanche?
Another really good groove. It's it's one of those songs I got to move to, and I find that my ribs hurt by the end of it. I find that maybe it runs a little long, and maybe that loses my interest a bit towards the end. But as a whole, I do like it. Yeah, I didn't see Street Park either. I think the closest I ever came to it was I saw the Simpsons did it, and Marge got cast in the play or something. And it was a time where she felt like underappreciated, and at the very end of the thing, like Homer kind of got the idea behind it, and he kind of like makes up for like not appreciating her quite as much, if only for like the last couple minutes of the episode. But yeah, it's definitely just to get the whole context. It's something you should see at some point. Plus, it's a classic, so.
Okay, good. So that's Blanche. And then the next track we have is Soul Psychedelicide, which is actually one of the rare cases where a song title is referred to in another song. Of course, we hear about the song Soul Psychedelicide in the song Joy in Repetition. He references the song's a year long and had been playing for months when they walked into the place. So, yeah, the song is plenty long, and it gets repetitive a little bit towards the end, but I'll stop there and let you go, Dreamy. What do you think of Soul Psychedelicide?
Yeah, it took me a few minutes they don't really do much in the song until, like, he gets to a point where they actually say the name of, like, oh, okay, I know this song, and I'm kind of surprised it's not longer than 12 minutes, because they talk about how they've been playing the song for months, but like I'm still not sure by that lyric if he means that they've been playing it for months or for 4 months, like the number 4, it's hard to know for sure. But they probably thought it's probably one of those grooves he drilled into them, like, for hours and days and weeks, to the point where like, they're raw, but they know it, like they have it down cold. And it's like it's one of those songs where you gotta mentally prepare yourself if you're not into it. It's like, okay, I'm gonna be here a while, might as well just get into the groove and feel it. And I seem like throughout he shouts ice cream. Translation for just really hitting the drums like really fast, and that's where the groove kind of starts. And that's like he used all kinds of code words when they would perform on stage, and that's how the whole band could like just stop on a dime and follow his lead. And there are little bits that make me think that's the song. It's going to be a beautiful night, like that kind of start. I think it starts here. And then, we have the female vocals doing Soul Psychedelicide, and the male vocals, like they sound like the people at the end of Mutiny, or they're showing like it was Mutiny or some other song in the Family, where they're saying Vogue all the way Vogue, and they're like Psychedelicide, it's a hell of a thing, and they just it never stops, but. Yeah, it's such a nice groove, and you get lost in it. But at the same time, it's like to your detriment. Like you gotta pick your spots to breathe, otherwise you're gonna to lose the beat.
Right.
One.
Yeah. To me, yeah, this is one of the standouts of the set, really. And to me, being a guy that's generally not into instrumentals, this instrumental to me is fire. I mean, it's absolute, like you say, you get into the groove and you just feel it and, ride it for all 12 minutes or however long it is. I actually read somewhere that this was edited down from a 45-minute or an hour-long jam. This was edited down to 12 minutes. So I could definitely see that happening. And yeah, the whole shouting ice cream, to start it out. I'll always think of the song under the title Ice Cream, even though they do repeat Soul Psychedelicide. It's a hell of a thing, throughout the end of the song. But I'm going to call it Ice Cream because I love that. It's quirky and it's funny. And what stood out to me the most was the bass, that synth bass. I think it's a synth bass, or it might actually, no, I think on second thought, I think it's actually Brown Mark, but the bass is just absolutely pumping and grooving, and it just slaps you upside the head, and I love it. So yeah, definitely one of the highlights for me. And it gets a little long and a little repetitive, but great instrumental jam. One of my favorite tracks on the set overall. Yeah, I love it. So that's Soul Psychedelicide. And next we have The Ball, which this is the original version of what eventually morphed into the opening track of the Love Sexy album, I Know. And I'm glad it morphed into I Know, because The Ball just seems a little bit I don't know. I don't want to say clumsy, but maybe just a little bit dull compared to the message of I Know. I mean, The Ball is more of a party song, a generic party song vibe, where I Know is, this spiritually uplifting message. So I'm glad that Prince saw the need to repurpose it and change the lyrics into something more meaningful in I Know. But I liked it. What stood out to me was the lyric, got a notion about the way things are, give 'em up, yo. And then I really like that lyric, because as I'm going through my own spiritual journey of personal growth and self-love and all that, you kind of got to shed, your preconceived notions and your preconceived ideas about the way things are, and just let them go and go with the flow. So I really resonated with that lyric in the song. And then there's a scream towards the end that he does that's absolutely amazing, that really stood out to me, that I really, really loved. So those are my thoughts on The Ball. Dreamy, what do you think of The Ball?
Yeah, most of the stuff you said, I echo. I don't have too much more to add. I like having it. And just in the context of the whole set, I wanted to say that's a nice cool down after the last two songs. It's a lot more mellow, a lot more relaxed, and I can breathe for a little bit. I'm not grooving too much to this point. It's a good mellow out song after a couple of heavy hitters.
Okay. And then we have actually a song that Susan Rogers actually laughed at when she first heard it. Prince was completely enamored with it and thought it was something great and a real masterpiece, and Susanna thought it was kind of ridiculous and self-indulgent. I'm somewhere in the middle. I probably side more with Prince on this one, because it's very lush and layered with the harmony vocals, and the guitar solo is absolutely awesome. Oh, by the way, we're talking about Adonis and Bathsheba is the next track. So it has a very, again, it's one of those tracks with a parade vibe for me. I can very much see this fitting in with the whole idea of the love affair between Christopher and Mary Sharon. I could see this in a love scene. I could see them, making out to this song or whatever. But yeah, the layered vocals makes me think of his earliest work where he would just layer harmonies on top of each other, and it's all him, and it's just so lush and full and beautiful. And then the guitar work is just absolutely fire on this song. And I actually had this bootleg years before it leaked out to a wide audience. I was like only one of 4 or 5 people that had the bootleg, and I sat on it for like 2.5 years before it was widely leaked out. And now, all these years later, it's finally officially released. But yeah, it reminds me, it's a song that reminds me of God, the instrumental version, the love theme from Purple Rain, with the guitar and just the lushness of it and the intensity of it. And the lyrics are pretty intense and graphic in some places, and I could see where it would be embarrassing for people to listen to. So I kind of get the sense of why Susan Rogers would laugh at it, but musically, especially the guitar, is just outstanding. So, yeah, one of the highlights for me, Adonis and Bathsheba. Dreamy, what do you think of this track?
I don't know where to begin. It feels like there's like so much to it that it's like it'll take forever to even like sum it up. It's maybe not my absolute favorite on this set. I do like it a lot, and I just couldn't help but think like there's so many different things that remind me of the rest of his work. Like parts of it remind me of like I Wish You Heaven, Crucial, Damn You, and the guitar solo. I can hear a bit of Purple Rain in there. I can hear a little bit of Shush in there. Like there's like so much to it, and I know the two characters are from mythology or whatever, but I get Garden of Eden type vibes. And the one other thing I could possibly add was I on a whim, like a while ago, probably a couple years, I was like, I'll go to the principal. I'm like, let's see what he did on the day I was born. And like, he didn't record a song on my birthday, but this is the closest to it. This was 2 days before I was born, and
cool.
Yeah, and I was thinking today, it's like, wait, I was born on Tuesday. I knew that for a fact, which would place this at Sunday, and he apparently had a habit for recording more religious, spiritual stuff on Sundays. So maybe that's where his mindset was at the time. That was something I just thought about today.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. Then next we have Forever in My Life, the early vocal run through. So this is the first version before Prince decided to switch it up and they turned it into what would become the album version. So Dreamy, what do you think of the early vocal run through of Forever in My Life?
Love it. Yeah, when I first got to it, I think I heard that this was going to be on the set, and it's like, oh, this will be interesting. I'm not sure what to expect. And the first thing I'm thinking, okay, are the backing vocals going to be in the right place? And they were. And maybe it's just the way it's put together, but it just feels like it's a completely new song, even though the words are exactly the same. I mean, it's a completely different vocal between the two versions. But the first vibe I got when it started playing, I'm thinking the beginning of the Sly Stone song, Everyday People, I was getting that. And then I could just picture him on acoustic guitar singing his heart out to this. Like, he really can feel his passion, like, straightforward. And it's, like, once or twice, I think I almost teared up just because, like, imagine him writing a song like that for you. Like, you can't imagine how Susanna felt when she first heard it. And, yeah, it's a nice song to just kind of hang with, and I find both versions are great, and I like different things from both. I find with this one, like, I've listened to the melody and his lead vocal a lot more, and I'm not really paying attention to everything else. And on the other version, like, I hear the backing vocals a bit stronger, so I think I sing along to those a bit more than I do with, like, the lead. And it's also nice that this one kind of runs long and has time to breathe. That's also a nice highlight.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I like the version, but like you say, they're almost like two different songs, because for me, this early version sounds much more carefree and less serious in a way. I mean, the album version sounds, I don't want to say colder, because it makes it seem less romantic, but it's just a lot more dark and a lot more haunting in a way, where this is more carefree and kind of poppy, and in a way it almost reminded me of his 1970s sound, and also a little bit of a flavor of early 80s country, like country pop. I got sort of a vibe from it, which I really, really like. And but I would say overall I prefer the album version, because it's a little more. It has a little more of a atmosphere to it, a little more of a vibe. There's a starkness or a minimalness to it that I really am drawn to. But the last third of this version, it sort of goes into an acoustic guitar jam where they're chanting "Forever in My Life," and it sounds like the live versions, or specifically the version from the Sign of the Times movie where he goes into it eventually, but it sounds a lot like the live version, the last third of this one. So actually, I know of a mix that a fan made of the album version and then the last third of this vocal run through. They sort of mixed them together and made sort of a hybrid version that's really cool. So I like that version as well. But yeah, good song, and cool to have as a reminder of how songs developed in the studio, and how Prince changed the vibe to fit more with the vibe of the album in the end. So really cool. Then we have Crucial, an alternate vocal version, and overall, I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but Crucial is one of the songs I absolutely am completely head over heels in love with, and I actually think to me, it's a controversial opinion, but to me, this song is better than Adore, but that's for another day and another podcast. But I love the song Crucial in general, but I don't like these lyrics at all. I'm glad he changed them. But again, it's nice to have from the standpoint of hearing sketches, of the studio work and how songs started out to versus where they eventually evolved into other versions or other, completely different lyrics. So, Dreamy, what do you think of this alternate lyric version of Crucial?
Well, at first it was confusing. Like I'm used to some lyrics, and then some of them are identical to a point, and it veers off, and it's like, oh crap, I'm singing the wrong words. And then you listen to it, it's like some of the lyrics make me blush. They're a little not overly graphic, but just suggestive, I guess. Especially like the second pre-chorus bridge, where he talks about like, your body's river, I want every drop. Like, oh, okay. But like, yeah, it's kind of a shame. Like the version that got officially released, like it's cranked too loud, and everything sounds kind of distorted. It's like, but I wish we had we would eventually get a cleaner version of it, of that version where it's like the vocals not distorted, and also but the one thing I do like, I like that this one gets to stretch out a bit too. Like I find that the ending is kind of rushed on the Crystal Ball version, and then it's like we had the end of the guitar solo, and then suddenly it's like fading out and it's over. At least this one, it comes to fruition as a whole.
Right. The ending is rushed on the Crystal Ball version. There's an early fade out, and I know a lot of people were upset with that back in '98 when the Crystal Ball set first came out. So to have this more complete musical ending is nice. And it's just a great song overall. But the first draft of these lyrics isn't nearly as good as the subsequent lyrics that he came up with. So, like I said, I'm glad to have that from a historic standpoint, but I definitely prefer the revised lyrics. So, and then we have a theatrical type song that was meant for a abandoned musical that Prince wrote about two fictional rival bands. Of course, the story eventually changed and morphed and evolved into the plot of Graffiti Bridge. But at the time, the musical was called The Dawn, and one of the bands was called the Cocoa Boys. So we have the Cocoa Boys, and for me, this has a very Love Sexy era type vibe to it. Very magical and shimmery, and it's hard to exactly describe, but I really dig it. I love the story aspect of it, and sort of Prince sort of using his speaking voice in a way, not his boring speaking voice, but more of an animated speaking voice where it's hard to explain. But I really like the storytelling aspect to it and the storyline. As a writer, that's interesting to me, and it kind of sets the scene for this, this musical that would never take shape in this exact form, but would later evolve into Graffiti Bridge. And of course, then we have the most interesting connection to me is the different lyrics that are in the song that connect to other future songs that were released, like the lyric, all the boys and all the girls, you are the new kings of the world, would eventually be reused in Positivity on Love Sexy. And then at the end, in the fade out, he says it's going to be a beautiful night. So you're seeing kind of the origin of those ideas that would end up popping into other songs later, but they're showing up for the first time here. So it's sort of a cool aspect of, or a cool example of history being made in the studio and how different lyrics and different ideas develop over time. So it's cool to have from an historic standpoint as well. But Dreamy, what do you think of the Cocoa Boys?
I didn't know that it was meant for a musical, but once you say that, it's like, yeah, it totally makes sense. It's very cinematic, and right away, I was a few seconds into this the first time, and I was blown away, and I loved every second of it. It's a cool concept. It's a cool story. Great. Love the music. Like, killer atmosphere. I don't know what else to really add. Really enjoy this one, too.
Okay. Then we have When the Dawn of the Morning Comes. And Dreamy, I'll let you start out with this one. What do you think of this track?
Yeah, the frantic nature of it makes me think of Maybe I'm a Star and Trust, like songs like that. Yeah, I have in my notes that it's like a little raw sounding in places, and it's like experimental in places, but it's a great vibe, but I find that after like a couple minutes, I'm sick of it. Like it's like I get the point after a bit, and I'm ready for like the next song to start.
Okay, yeah, I have in my notes in all caps, energy with three exclamation points. I mean, like you say, it's a very energetic, very upbeat song. Again, I get a parade vibe. I don't know why I'm getting a parade vibe with a lot of these songs, and then I sort of made my own category or my own genre for songs like this. And there's one other song coming up in the set that falls under the same pretend genre, but I made up the genre of purple gospel to sort of categorize this type of song. And it's interesting that you brought up Baby I'm a Star, because I have in my notes that this song sounds like, to me, like a mix of Christopher Tracy's Parade and Baby I'm a Star. If they were blended together and sort of had a baby, it would be When the Dawn of the Morning Comes. So, yeah, those are my notes. I like the song, but, yeah, I can definitely see your point to where after a few minutes it becomes kind of exhausting. So, yeah, I can definitely see that. But an interesting song to hear and a cool one to have in this set. And so, yeah. Next we have a song called It Bees Like That Sometimes. And it closes out the second disc of the Vault Tracks, the Sign of the Times Vault Tracks. And I don't have much to say about this one. I enjoy it, but it's kind of hard for me to make the lyrics out. I don't know if it's just due to my own hearing capacity or what, but it was hard to make out the lyrics. But musically, vibe-wise, it reminded me of the song If It Isn't Love by the boy band New Edition. To go back to the boy band sort of vibe, it reminded me of that song If It Isn't Love by New Edition. And, I'm not giving away spoilers really about Dwayne Tudall's book about the parade and Sun of the Time sessions when I say that this was recorded shortly after Prince fired Wendy and Lisa and Bobby and Mark. And so the first lyric of the song is, for those of you on the way out. So you sort of wonder, or I sort of wonder, if it's a veiled message to the members of the revolution that were fired or let go by Prince. So that's kind of an interesting historical connection to it, to the lyrics. Great falsetto vocals by Prince, and there's a cool little piano solo at the end that I really, really love. So, yeah, I like the song, and I think it's a good way to close out the second disc of Outtakes or the Sign of the Times era. Dreamy, what do you think of It Bees Like That Sometimes?
another one, I really love the vibe of it. I find whenever I get around to it and it starts playing, it's like I feel very at ease. I feel buoyant. I feel happy. And I'm not entirely sure what it's about because I do have written here that it's hard to understand at points, but it sounds like, yeah, people will try to bring you down, but you got to rise above that. That's what the whole thing I kind of get out of it. And it coincides with a couple other songs on the set that have that message. And other than that, I don't remember too much. I just like it. I just know I like the way it makes me feel when I listen to it.
Very, very cool. And then we have Emotional Pump. Dreamy, I'll let you start out with this one. What do you think of Emotional Pump?
Yeah, my first vibe, maybe it was because of the song that follows it, but it's kind of a Camille song without having a Camille vocal. But I find that it's very, very catchy. Like I can't remember off the top of my head right now exactly what it sounds like, but it's when I listen to it, I do enjoy the melody. I got sucked into that, and I have a note here. It says like it would suit an R&B girl group or something from the 90s or another protege band. Like almost maybe I'm thinking it would fit somebody else better, but yeah, it's like I'm drawing a blank other than my notes, but it is one when I get to it, I do enjoy listening to it. Other than that, I don't have much else to add.
Right. Well, funny enough, I know that this was originally written for Joni Mitchell, of all people, to take and to release. And Joni Mitchell listened to it, and she's like, this isn't my vibe at all. She's like, there's no way I can do this song. So I can totally see that because it doesn't fit Joni Mitchell's vibe at all. You know, Joni Mitchell's more of a, what do I want to say, like a folk type artist, and this isn't folk at all. It's more funky R&B type vocals, and funky R&B type vibe overall. And you know, when I listened to it almost right away, I immediately thought of the song "Fill You Up," the Camille version.
I have that in my notes.
The B-side for the Batman track. I can't remember which Batman track it was the B-side for, but yeah, exactly. So it immediately made me think of "Fill You Up," so much so that I'm wondering if these weren't if he didn't use these same basic tracks as underneath the Camille version of "Fill You Up," because it sounds so similar. But the notes that I have, there's great vocal harmony layers in the chorus, again with the layered harmony vocals, so lush and rich. And then there's a spoken part in there that's really, really cool, and Prince trying to be really seductive, and all that whole vibe, and it's really, really cool. So I really enjoy it. And then we get to "Rebirth of the Flesh," which to me is really cool and really historically significant because it it completes the official release of all the Camille album studio tracks. So we finally have all the Camille tracks, studio versions, officially released with this track. And what can I say? I mean, it's a stone cold classic. I love it as an album opener for the Camille album. It's just, funky, and there's tons of lyrical references to there's a dig at the members of the revolution, asking to be paid more. Specifically, Brown Mark, he asked for his pay to be raised, and And so there's a lyric, "It ain't about the money, we just want to play." So you can see Prince being sort of bitter towards the revolution, wanting more money, where for him it's just about the joy of creation, the joy of playing music, and he felt kind of resentful toward them for asking for more money. And so it's cool to have those little personal references in there. But yeah, great song overall. One of the highlights of the set, one of the selling points of the set, I think, is finally having the release studio version of this song, and I'm so glad we have it. I love the song. So, Dreamy, what are your thoughts on Rebirth of the Flesh?
Pretty much the same. It's nice to finally have this one. I think the only version we ever got was an MPG Music Club version, which was from a rehearsal or was live or something. I haven't listened to it in ages, so I kind of forget what it sounds like. But as soon as it starts, like, oh, this is the one Camille track we don't have, and it's like celebrate. And then there's the one lyric that kept repeating, "We are here, where are you?" It's like, that's like all hardcore Prince fans know it, but I didn't know this is where it came from, some mystery solved. So yeah, this is just a fun one. Another good one.
Oh yeah. Yep. And then Cosmic Day, another track that almost reached mythical levels in Prince bootleg circles, because for years there was only a 1 minute or 1 minute 30-second snippet of the song, and everybody, especially I know my friend Casey Rain of the Violent Reality, shout out to Casey if you're listening to this podcast, but I know Casey had wanted this full track for years, and we finally have it. It's Cosmic Day. So, Dreamy, what are your thoughts on Cosmic Day?
It was a highlight right away, like immediately. Like, I think it's another song I'd heard of, but I didn't really have any context for it. But once it started, like, it was just such a great vibe, so much fun. But I was also thinking, it sounds like something the Bangles or a girl group could have done and just had a runaway hit with. And it's one of those situations where you can say this about a lot of Prince songs, or any other artist, they release a certain song and would be the highlight of their whole career. It's like, it's hard not to be a little mad that he didn't release this or something, because it's like, it's so poppy, it's so good. It's like, I just love it. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We must be sharing brainwaves or something, because I have in my notes the Bangles. This sounds exactly like a song that would be perfect for the Bangles to cover and to release, especially back in the 80s. I also have the vibe of the song made me think of the song "So Far, So Pleased" from Raven to the Joy Fantastic. The duet with Gwen Stefani kind of gave me that vibe. And the guitar work is really what stood out for me. Crazy good guitar work on this song. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. So yeah, definitely a highlight, and great to finally have this in full and in great audio quality as well. So yeah, then we have Walking in Glory, which is the second of two tracks I categorize in my own made-up genre of purple gospel. And of course, I have heard people on Prince.org talk about the fact that the music for Walking in Glory is connected, or is the same basic music of Two Nigs United for West Compton on the Black album. It's the same basic music track with a few little tweaks and differences here and there. But of course, this song has lyrics, and it gives me almost a Love Sexy vibe. Like it could be a replacement for I Know on Love Sexy, which I would never realistically replace I Know because I love it. It's one of my favorite album openers in Prince history and one of my most favorite uplifting spiritual songs that he's ever done. But again, the vocals on this are so great, and he gets so into it and so passionate. And the guitar work, again, is just absolute fire, and I love it. So, yeah, this is a standout for me. Dreamy, what do you think of Walking in Glory?
Yeah, I made that same connection, too, and I found that kind of interesting. I don't care for that particular song from the Black Album that much because it's just a pure instrumental, and I feel like it doesn't really go anywhere. And this one, it's interesting. I mean, it's not one I would probably go on my way to listen to. It's an interesting story where it sounds like a girlfriend of his passed away, and she's now with my God in heaven. And I noticed today that there's a weird juxtaposition that happens where what the music starts to really go, and some of the vocal things he does, it almost sounds like he went to the sexuality side, and then he reverts back to spirituality by the end. But there's kind of an interesting thing that happens in the middle. So,
I'll have to go back and look out for that. Definitely, but yeah, I love the song. It's interesting. I like it a lot better than the Black Album track because obviously this track has lyrics. But yeah, good song. And next we have one of the saddest songs I think that Prince ever wrote and recorded. And of course, we all know the legend about the first version of the song that Prince recorded and erased. Susan Rogers said it was the best thing Prince had ever done. And she said with this second version recorded the next day, the lyrics are exactly the same, but his vocal delivery is a little bit different, a little more detached and less emotional. And of course, we're talking about the song Wally. Again, for me, it's one of those songs that has the same sort of gloomy heartbreak vibe as a song like Empty Room. It has that same type of feeling or sentiment to me, and it feels like he's desperate for distraction, so he's sort of acting upbeat and ready and willing to go to this party and meet someone, but yet you can hear it in his voice that he's underneath it all, he's kind of heartbroken and desperate for some sort of distraction to distract him from this heartbreak. So it's very interesting the way Prince's lyrical delivery gives that feeling. But then there's a lyric that Duane Tudor writes about in his book that is like a vague or an indirect reference to suicide, because he talks about going to the party and then he says, if I don't find somebody will find me. And Duane makes a connection like, if he doesn't find somebody at the party to start a relationship, then eventually somebody will find him after he commits suicide from his heartbreak. So that's the lyrical connection that Duane makes in his book. And I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but I guess we'll never know. Prince would be the only one that would really know the truth, but it's interesting to think about in that way. And then once again, the guitar work on this song, I mean, I've said it for several songs in a row, but the guitar work on this song is absolutely amazing. So yeah, amazing song, very historically significant in terms of Prince's recording history and his personal history as well, because he wrote and recorded this song in response to the breakup of his engagement with Susanna Melvoin, who of course is Wendy's twin sister. Susanna was his first really, really serious fiance. But yeah, great song and very emotionally impactful and emotionally charged. And Dreamy, what do you think of Wally?
It's interesting to finally have this one after hearing all the folklore about it. I can only imagine like what his vocals would have been like with the version he had erased. It must have been way too personal, too revealing, and he didn't want that to get out. Yeah, I don't think I've fully like synced into it myself yet, even though I know the background of it. Maybe part of me in my head is playing devil's advocate, and it's like maybe because of the story behind it, we're making too much out of it. But there are parts where it's like you feel chills, you feel the emotional impact. It's not exactly the same song, but some of the emotional stuff that he brings to it made me think of the song Another Lonely Christmas, like just that raw emotion that comes out. And I also wrote a note about guitar solos. Like it's a different solo compared to some of the other ones. Like it stands out on its own.
Okay. And then we have I Need a Man, which was written and given to the blues legend, the guitarist and singer Miss Bonnie Raitt, who I absolutely love. You might know her. One of her biggest hits was Something to Talk About, and she also did the original version of I Can't Make You Love Me, which is a heartbreaking ballad which Prince eventually covered and released on the Emancipation album. But yeah, this song was written for Bonnie Raitt, and I'll just say, to begin with, you can really feel that Bonnie Raitt vibe to it because it's got a funky, kind of spunky blues vibe to it. But Dreamy, I'll let you start this one off. What do you think of the song I Need a Man?
Yeah, I feel like these last four songs we're going to talk about, they all kind of lump together for me. Like they sound, I think they were all ones that he wrote and intended for somebody else, and maybe from a different, like a female perspective. So they're not, you can take them as like his songs, but a couple of them I really like, and this is one of them. I find the chorus really sticks in my head, and I just it's like I'm already kind of singing along to it, and there's some nice lyrics where he talks about not wanting to be obsessed about money, and then he later says, "A little money don't hurt, but I'd rather have a body that works," like stuff like that. And I think I have one note that says that it would be a nice song for a female artist from the R&B genre. That they could really make something out of this and do a good job with it. And the horn section is also really cool.
Yep, I have that in my notes. The horn section, the horn parts are really, really hot. I have it written as HAWT. So
okay.
Yeah. So I really like the horns. It's Prince being playful, being bold. Taking on that bold female persona. I need a real man. So step up to the plate. And the one lyric that really made me laugh and really made me chuckle was, "Let me tell you one more time in case you think I'm drunk." So,
oh my God.
In case you think I'm drunk, let me tell you one more time. But I love that. I love that lyric. But yeah, it's a great song, and Bonnie Raitt's version is really good too. If you haven't heard that, I would definitely suggest you seek it out. It's a great bluesy song and a lot of fun. So, Promise to Be True. Again, the same with back when we talked about the track Twain, I said I got a Motown vibe, a 1960s Motown soul vibe, and I definitely get the same vibe here, but it's different. It's almost like it's almost like a 50s vibe instead of a 60s vibe, kind of a 50s, sock hop vibe to it. It kind of gives an old school vibe of a track like When You Were Mine, a little bit of the throwback, it's the old, rock and roll era of the 50s and 60s. And the vocal by Prince is really great. It's really passionate and really has a lot of conviction. So I really like the song. Jamie, what do you think of Promise to Be True?
Yeah, all your comparisons, I totally agree. They were giving me the similar vibes. This is probably one that it doesn't hold up to a lot of the other songs in the album. I don't like it quite as much, but I'll listen to it. But it's kind of average.
Okay, fair enough. Then we have an example of, let's see, Prince's sense of humor is in this song in full force, and we know it was probably intended for a female artist because it's sang from the female point of view, but it's just hilarious. I was smiling and laughing the whole time listening to this song, and it's the 1986 version, I believe, of Jealous Girl. Personally, it gave me kind of a Camille vibe, specifically the song Love or Money. It has the same type of tempo, same type of vibe, and the lyrics are hilarious. That's okay because I cut up her face, or that's okay because I blew up her car. What can I say? I'm a jealous girl. Like, it really should be Psycho Girl, but it's just hilarious. I mean, it's just such a fun song, and I love it a lot. So, Jamie, what do you think of Jealous Girl?
Love this one. The first time I heard it, it was like, oh man, like I kind of got that he was singing from a different perspective, but I was loving every second of it. Yeah, the melody, I have notes, like, I was comparing it to a lot of mid-90s songs he put out, like, I'm a little bit of Get Your Groove On and Damned If I Do, and also songs like Last December and Dinner with Dolores. Like, some of the bits in the melody, certain notes remind me of the songs in the double clap that happens in the song Blue Limousine from Apollonia 6. But this is, the lyrics in this one are like so much fun, and it's like, that's okay. I blew up her car, like that. It's hard not to like just laugh out loud whenever I hear that line. But just the humor is awesome.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's such a fun song to listen to. And finally, the final track we'll be reviewing before we sum up and give our thoughts on the set as a whole. There's something I like about Being Your Fool. Dreamy, I'll let you start off this last one. What do you think of this track?
Yeah, I kind of like it. I don't love it, but I do enjoy it. It's very relaxed. I'm thinking about from 1999 Ball, the song If It'll Make You Happy is like, it's a very similar kind of vibe, and I guess it's kind of a similar type of song where actually not entirely, but he talks about like if the relationship's not going all that well, and he's like, I don't mind that, like, taking the abuse or just being abandoned. It's kind of a weird relationship that kind of is going on, but I mean, it's kind of a sad story, but I don't feel overly sad when I listen to it.
Right. It's kind of one of those songs where the lyrics and the vibe of the music, there's kind of a disconnect or opposite type thing going on with the juxtaposition of the lyrics and the music. But for me, on my notes I have, it has kind of a reggae or a ska vibe to it.
Yeah.
Like you say, really relaxed, really chill. And I really like the vocal. I found it to be really emotional and really heartfelt by Prince, which well, he gives great vocal performances, but this one stood out to me as being really emotional and really heartfelt. And with the reggae vibe, I really got the vibe of the band The Police, which Sting was a member of The Police. He was the bass player, the lead singer. So I really got a Police vibe from this song for some reason, most likely because of the reggae element to it. But again in my notes I have guitar. So there's something about the guitar in these songs that's really on point and really impactful and really grabs my attention. So yeah, I really like this song. Really good way to close out the set, I think. And Dreamy, what are your overall thoughts on these outtakes for the Sun of the Times era as a whole?
As a whole, I find that there's a lot of really solid grooves, and at the moment, I can't think of another album he put out where I've really found the groove, and I feel like I'm moving quite as much as I have with a lot of these songs. And it's nice to have all of them, and there's maybe some repetition. Some of the repetition is warranted, some is not. And it's nice to have some songs you hear about. There's kind of they're legendary status, I guess, within they're songs that diehard fans all know about, and it's nice to actually have them. Compared to 1999, well, I mean, it's really hard to draw comparisons. I think I still prefer 1999, but there's some songs from here that are I really, really enjoy, especially some of the Dream Factory stuff with Wendy and Lisa. I found I really enjoyed just hanging with those.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much spot on with my thoughts as well. I mean, these songs with legendary status that we've never heard before, or if we had heard them, they were either in super crappy bootleg quality or, just snippets of the song and not the full song. To finally have all the full songs in great quality is really nice. There's some songs that are repeats of songs that repeat versions that don't really add to the quality of the set or aren't really a selling point for the set, but there's some versions that are really good to have on from a historical standpoint, and just from a comparison standpoint, comparing the separate versions to see which one you personally like better, like with Big Tall Wall and songs like that. It's a very very comprehensive set. There's a lot of music. So I don't really know going forward in the future with future deluxe sets how they're going to be able to top this in terms of sheer volume. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, and a lot of it is very, very good. So overall, yeah, I would prefer the 1999 vault tracks, just in terms of consistency and quality. But like you said, there's some great grooves in the Sign of the Times vault tracks that you just lock on and hold on to and just groove with. So very, very nice. So yeah, that's a nice way to sum it up. Later this week, at the end of the week, tune in. The next podcast is coming up. Will be with Minneapolis historian Kristen Sumler, and also we will be joined by special guest Dr. Christy Faircloth, who is one of the organizers of the upcoming academic conference, Prince 78 to 88. So we'll be talking to those two ladies later this week, so be on the lookout for that. Until then, This is Chris Johnson speaking for myself and Dreamy Pop Royalty. We'll see you next time. And we're out, everybody. Thank you.